Today, something happened which I see as nothing short of a miracle. My name is Nikki, and this is Nuance with Nikki. I had the privilege of speaking to author Philip Timothy Arnell, author of The MGM Perspective, a guideline to the mixed world. Did you know that there are people all over the world who have been mixed race for decades, sometimes centuries? Well, Philip Arnell is here in this series to tell us more about them. You see, we are a deeply misunderstood and understudied group. I've been trying to address this topic on my channel, and Philip has been doing it for years before me, and that's what his book is all about. So, Philip contacted me and challenged me to do something that I'd never done before, and that is to give an interview. And I was so nervous. I've never done anything of the sort. So, this is my very first interview, and I'm super, super excited. There is a little bit of an awkward thing though. I seem to have messed up the sound when I was speaking. So throughout this interview, you'll hear me try and do overdubs. They may sound a bit awkward, and I do apologize for that. Or you'll just hear me interject in between and give audios. This is the best I can do with the material I've got. But either way, I hope it's enlightening. This little episode is just going to be an intro, and if you find it interesting, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, so you can be updated when I've edited new topics. Philip and I are in discussion, and we are thinking of doing this on a regular basis. We get to decide if it's going to be monthly or weekly. But for now, let's just dive in. What can I, as a South African, kleerling, bruino, mixed race, colorful, colored person, learn from my cousins in the Caribbean? I mean, you never know. Philip might be my literal uncle. You know, we might have a great grandfather that was on the exact same ship. This is so exciting. This is generational breaking stuff for me. So I invite all creolized groups, all multi-generational mixed people to come and learn from us. And of course, if you're in an interracial relationship and you want to understand more about the psyche of your child, you're welcome here too. What Philip and I are trying to do to the best of our ability is break generational cycles, break barriers, and connect to people who for too long have been forgotten and have been in the sidelines of society. And we have so much to offer. Please join us in this discussion. This is part of my series, Mixed Messages at Nuance with Nikki. And thank you for joining. You're all welcome here.
My name is Philip Timothy Arnell, a very proud mixed-race Caribbean American, and I'm also the author of 3 books, Fortunate Member of a Caribbean Diaspora, which chronicles the families of St. Martin, Aruba, and Anguilla, and Still Bajan After All These Years, which chronicles the families of Barbados. My mother's side is from Barbados, and we were able to trace all the way back to the year 200 BC with the assistance of some other cousins, Alan Ian Dean, as well as Angela Gabriel. Shout out to my 2 cousins. And for Fortunate Member of a Caribbean Diaspora, I was able to make it back to the 1600s as far as my 7th great-grandfather.
Now, we don't often learn much about the Caribbean in South Africa, even though once upon a time there was a lot of trade, a lot of ships coming between us, right? But when I looked up the islands that he mentioned, I thought, oh, other Cape Towns. And when I looked at the people from those islands, I thought, oh, other Breno Mensa. Literally our cousins. I'm pretty confident. So, guys, can you clear something up for me? Because I don't get it. I'm not going to lie. I do not get it. The more I'm looking at pictures of the Caribbean, St. Martin, Aruba, Barbados, I'm thinking, who in their gosh darn minds gets on a ship, goes all the way from the beautiful town of Cape Town, Kaapstad, all the way to Barbados, comes to these beautiful islands with these gorgeous women and thinks, ooh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a racism. Guys, I wouldn't have time. I'm a straight woman and I'm looking like at these women like, woo, trying to get a wife right now. I don't get it, guys. I don't get it. Somebody clear it up for me, please.
Now, my book that I'm highlighting right now is The MGM Perspective, a guideline into the mixed world. Basically, the premise is most people don't realize that the largest group in the world are multi-generationally mixed people globally due to migrations and also modern day mixing. It is pretty much an ignored society, if that's too strong of a word, but it's the best way to describe it. I came from a long line of mixed race people on both sides, and I've learned all different types of facts and cultural perspectives that have helped me to become who I am today. I am very fortunate, and in my years of different experiences and so forth, I've been able to apply what I have learned to different situations. Some people would say, well, how would you do that? So I say, well, okay, I'll see something that's going on, and I'll try to think of the people that I came from and how they might handle this. I'm like, okay, these people would be more straightforward. These people would be more diplomatic. I think that's the best way to do it. Everything is put together into the Caribbean society. So you're going to know when to strike and know when to pull back and just coast.
Philip, here in South Africa, greetings are so important. Would you please teach us how to greet in one of your languages?
Okay, well, my family represents England. Well, English. They represent the Netherlands. They represent France. And there's a little bit of Latin flavor influence in regard to the family from Aruba. So the best way to say is in Papiamento for Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. That is a combination language which is a cross between Spanish, Dutch, English, French, African, and Indian languages. And it's Kombai, Amitabon, which is hello, how are you? I'm fine. Kombai. Actually, officially, it's Kontabai, but to abbreviate, it's Kombai, Amitabon. And if you're going to say, I am in Aruba having a great time, which you should go to Aruba the first chance that you get. It's not a biased opinion, but the beaches are lovely. It would be, Mi está pasando un buen tempo na Aruba. Cosco me espera.
Philip, trust me, with your bubbly personality, your beautiful beaches, and how gorgeous your people seem to be, I'm telling you now, there are people in South Africa saving their money, getting ready to go all the way to Aruba. So, guys, let's practice our papiamento, shall we? This part of Aruba looks strikingly like the Western Cape to me. I wonder what our audience thinks.
In our local language, papiamento, bombini means welcome. You'll hear this word a lot in Aruba. At the airport, bombini. At restaurants and hotels, bombini. Strolling, snorkeling, hiking, bombini.
Bombini. Well, that's a lot easier than what Philip taught me.
Please, can you repeat that for us slowly?
Mi está pasando un buen tempo na Aruba. Y cosco me espera. It's basically the same thing. I'm having a wonderful time in Aruba, etc.
I'd love to teach you a greeting in one of our languages. Have you ever heard of Afrikaans?
Yes, I have.
What do you know about it?
I've done a little bit reading on it a while ago, but I've never heard anyone actually speak it. As I was telling you before, you were the first friend that I made from South Africa, so you are going to be special because we will be friends for life.
Can you say ooh?
Ooh,
E.
e,
Uh. Ouya.
ooya,
And now you have to gargle. You've got to say goeie.
huya. Makes me think of Dutch. Goeiedag.
Well done. You've just said good day in the world's youngest language.
Wow. That, I gotta practice that. Dutch I heard all my life. It is very throaty. I know a little bit of Dutch. I know a little bit of French. English, of course. Spanish, of course. My mother's father spoke Spanish, and his side had lineage from Spain. And French, well, I am a French national, also while being at the same time a American citizen. I have dual citizenship, and I lived in Guadeloupe, I don't know, for 4 years at one point.
At this point, I told Philip about the wonderful Khoi and San people, and I told him the only thing that I can say in a Khoisan language, and that is our South African national motto, which I learned to say from this video.
In the Kham language, and this is our South African national motto, Khe Khara Khe. Different people come together, or as we say it properly in our motto, unity in diversity.
That's right, and that's exactly what this conversation felt like to me. Unity in diversity.
Yes, I've seen a lot of these pictures. As a matter of fact, I was in a discussion with a number of people, and they said that, well, how the world ended up being as it is because people migrated from place to place. And they said that there's a possibility that people from this particular region, they have an Asian lineage. That explains their features and their coloring. And being that they were in not a secluded area, but a concentrated area, you have people who kept mixing with each other through the generations. And not many people may not have ventured out, not many people may have ventured in. So it's just a genes constantly recycling itself, keeping that particular look rather than having an outside influence.
So if you're watching this video, I hope you're feeling what I'm feeling, which is a deep sense of connectedness that I've never felt before around my coloredness, around my mixed raceness. Um, you know, a seed has been planted just of how connected we are, just of how hidden our history is. And at this point, I'd like to invite anybody, no matter what your race, to go and learn about Krotoa. She is known as the mother of South Africa, but also the mother of Afrikaans. But she's also one of the original Khoisan people before there was mixed race, mixing of races and interaction with the Dutch. And if you have any Dutch heritage, or if you have any of this kind of heritage, I do recommend the documentary. I'll put a link in the description. But let me just give you a taste of what's to come. I think we've just scratched the surface. Let us connect now with that which is ancient, shall we?
Krotoa, kind van die kooi. Die Kaap van goeie hoop het betekenis vir hom gekry toe jy Kwena skoonheid. Koninklik, maar nog kind daar staan. Op die wye wit sandstrand sien hy net jou slanke nek, die gladde blasvel wat oor jou hoë wangbene strek en jou oë wildspokkie onskuldig wat die batalje gade slaan.
In 1652.
Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even when it's getting super pretty. And so Philip was very excited to learn about the Khoikhoi and the San. And then, we had to get right into it. I had to address the C word, the word colored, which in South Africa, for most people who are colored, is a symbol of pride. But I did let him know that if he wasn't comfortable with the word colored, he could use the word kleerling or bruino. Because it's a very awkward position that a South African is put into, right? You feel that if you are apologizing to an American for the word colored, you are betraying a small little race in the back corner of the world called colored people to whom you are loyal, right? And you can't just erase them because you're standing in front of someone who comes from the first world. In this case, Philip was very gracious. He said he had no problem with the word colored. And we went on to discuss how, I feel that for most mixed race people, and I've said this before, it's okay that young people go through the identity crisis and don't know where they are. That's not something that only mixed race kids go through. But for most mixed race people, we are the least motivated to create a racist world. And many people misunderstand us. They think that, because we're calling us mixed race, maybe we are rejecting one side of our family. So back in the day, they accuse you of wanting proximity to whiteness. Whereas, today, if you're standing up for Black people, they may accuse you of wanting #woke points, right? And I said to Philip, it's just not like that. For many of us, a world of race is something that would hurt our family. It's a way of tearing our families apart, and people don't seem to get that.
The same thing in the Caribbean as well. In one family, you could have someone who is very dark in complexion. And then you have somebody who is very, very light in complexion. They can be multi-related. They can be first cousins. And it's amazing how genealogy works. And they say, oh, well, not from the same family. They don't have the same parents. There's more to it than just complexion. There is the physical appearance as well, facial features, hair textures, all different things like that. There's so much depth to a human being in regard to their genetics, but a lot of people tend to want to simplify it and say, oh, no, well, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. And there's more to it than that. Swans quack too.
Right. So what people don't get is when you, someone else, are being racially rejected, you're being rejected by a stranger. But when you're mixed race, you're being rejected by your own, right? Sometimes it happens even within these family groups.
where you can have people, all right, I know of an older gentleman, and they were a very mixed family, very nice family. But there are those within that circle that would seem to, in his opinion, ostracize him because he was the darker complected one. And it affected him in his life. He was able to become the master of his own domain and reach the heights of people who would strive to do better and to grow. But only now, in his later years, he'll look back and say, wow, I lived through all that. I made my successes. But what I always really wanted was just to be accepted by by my immediates. And I felt for this gentleman because you could see the hurt in his eyes and how it's such a heavy thing on his soul. He's now addressing these things now that he is up in age.
I feel for him too. My heart absolutely broke hearing that story. You see, for a mixed race person, race is not a racial or political topic. Race is a family issue. I want to thank you guys for joining and for listening. Um, in our next episode, in our next clip, we're going to carry on to where I showed Philip a Southern Hemisphere perspective. I showed him a South African perspective, and I showed him an Australian perspective. He was completely flabbergasted. He was completely blown away by all the things that he might not have learned in the United States of America, and it was such a huge privilege for me. You see, it's not very often where you're the one taking the lead for anyone in the world, and the American is the one in the audience. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. I do apologize for all the sound issues. I'm doing my best to rectify it, but please stay tuned. Please subscribe to Nuance with Nikki. Please follow Philip on all of the socials, and we'll dive right into the topic next time. Thank you so much for joining. This has been Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even if it's pretty. You were listening to my guest, Philip Arnell. Thanks for joining.